Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In this video, we will be talking about sifat which are considered conditional. Sifat عارضة. So bismillah, let's get into the details. In terms of learning outcomes, what you should be able to get out of this video is number one, to differentiate what does sifat عارضة mean versus sifat لازمة. So sifat which are conditional versus sifat which are intrinsic. And the second learning objective is to understand some of the examples of what it means, or some examples of sifat عارضة, of some of these conditional sifat for letters. So bismillah, let's get into the details. In a previous video, which you can refer to, we have described what sifat are. And we said that sifat are characteristics for letters. It makes a letter sound correct and differentiate that letter from a different letter. And we described that some letters have intrinsic characteristics, so characteristics which make up that letter. They are part of the building blocks for that letter. For example, we said at, the ta here, at has this hams, has this little wind that comes with it, at. And we said, for example, that the dha, ظالم, the has isti'la, direction of sound is upwards, and has itbaq, so the sound is confined between the tongue and the upper palate. Dha or dhu or dhi, it still has isti'la or itbaq in all its scenarios. And for example, we said the sheen, ash, has this sifa or characteristic of tafashi. And we stepped through all of these. So these sifat, they apply to the letters. They are part of that letter. These are intrinsic. They are always there with a letter. They are, form part of the building block of that letter, always there with that letter. Now, let's take the opposite. Some characteristics are not quite always there. It depends on the situation. Let's take an example. If we take the alif in Surah Al-Fatiha and we say إياك, إياك. Now you hear how long the alif is here? إياك. And towards the end of the surah, وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ. Now, is the length the same in إِيَّاكَ and وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ? Well, the length is different. That length is a characteristic, but it's conditional. It's conditional on the situation the alif came in. Once it was shorter, once it was longer. And let's look at another one. If we take the letter nun. So if I say man aman, man aman. Now here you hear the noon clearly. Man aman. Or if I say man kan, man kan. Now here you don't hear the noon clearly. Or man yakun, man yakun. So there's a noon in man aman, and a noon in man kan, and a noon in may yakun. However, there's characteristics which are different in each option that we just mentioned. So in one of them you can hear it clearly, idhar. In another one it's hidden, that's ikhfa. In another one it's combined, that's idgham. So see, these characteristics kind of depend on the situation. They apply to the noon in certain scenarios and don't apply in other scenarios. So these characteristics are considered conditional or transient. Conditional as in they are conditional on the situation of the noon. It's not always in idhar, it's not always in idgham, it depends on the situation. That's why they are conditional. So that's what we mean by conditional sifat or transient sifat versus intrinsic or sifat which form part of the letter. Sifat which form part of the letter are considered intrinsic. Sifat that could be there, could not be there, just like we said, mad of the alif, or idhar of noon, or idgham, or ikhfa. These are conditional or transient. So let's put that into a diagram to make it clear. So we said sifat or characteristics can be split into two groups. One group is sifat which are intrinsic. They are from the nature of that letter. These intrinsic sifat or sifat lazimah can be split into two more options. can be split into صفات that have ضد, صفات that have opposites, and صفات that don't have opposites. And we mentioned the صفات that have opposites. We've covered them in a lot of videos before. جهر and hams, استعلاء and استفال, so on and so forth. And صفات that don't have opposites, like تفشي of the sheen, استطالة of the ضاد, قلقلة, and so on and so forth. So these all come under صفات which are intrinsic. They form the letter itself or part of the letter. On the other hand, صفات which are considered transient or conditional, صفات عارضة, there's a list of them there. There's the إدغام, إظهار, قلب, إخفاء, مد, سكت, سكون, ترقيق, التفخيم. There's 11 of those صفات which are considered transient or conditional. They depend on the condition the letter comes within. That condition could be met and that صفة could be there, or that condition could not be there and therefore that specific صفة is not there. However, we don't want to go into the detail of what each one means at the moment. Insha'Allah, we will have individual videos to describe these صفات that are عارضة. But the key point here is these صفات are conditional. They depend on the condition the letter comes within. In some scenarios they will be there. In some other scenarios they won't be there. And let's revisit those learning objectives. We said number one, we want to understand the difference and analyze the difference between صفات which are intrinsic and صفات which are conditional. And what did we say? We said that صفات which are intrinsic form the basis of that letter. صفات which are conditional come and go, depends on the situation, if that condition is there or not. And the other one is we listed those صفات which are conditional, and inshallah we'll cover them in the next videos. We'll see you then. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.